Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, Pesachim Daf Lamed. We are around 10 lines from the top of the Amud at those two dots. It says the Gemara, Omar Rav, Kedeiros, Pesach Yishavru. The pots, come Pesach, need to be broken because these pots had absorbed chametz within them. We have chametz residue in the walls of the kli. And Rav, as we learned yesterday, holds that even chametz after Pesach is asur b'hana. In accordance with Rabbi Yehuda, there's a pasuk that chametz after Pesach is asur. Therefore, says Rav, there's nothing to do with these pots after Pesach because they have absorbed chametz before Pesach. So come Pesach, just break them. There's really no function, no use for these kelim, because the chametz embedded within the walls of the kli will become absorbed within the dish, within the food that you're going to be cooking in this pot. It's going to be a taroivis of the isser, the chametz after Pesach, which is asur, in this food cooked within, which is heter. And Rav holds that even a mashu, even just a minute amount of this chametz l'achar Pesach has the ability to make the taroivis, the mixture asur. Therefore, Amarav, Kedeiros, Pesach Yishaveru, come Pesach, these Kedeiros, these pots, the Gemara soon will say we're speaking about klei cheres, earthenware kelim, in which case you can't just flush out the flavor, you can't do hagala, put it into boiling hot water, you can't do that when it comes to klei cheres, as we're going to see in the upcoming sugya. So there's no choice but to go and break them, destroy them. Says the Gemara Vamai, why does he have to resort to that? You're right. The chametz embedded within the walls of the kli, this residue is going to be asur after Pesach. But even according to Rav, the isser of chametz l'achar Pesach b'mashu, the fact that even just a small amount of that chametz could be oiser the entire mixture, entire taroivis, is only when it is mixing with something that is the same type of food, b'minoi. But if it's shaloi b'minoi, if it's a different type of food, when we have those contrasting flavors, the flavor of heter contrasting and opposing the flavor and the tam of the chametz, then the chametz doesn't have the ability to make it asur if it's only just a drop. In this case, where we only have the absorbed flavor within the walls of the kli, it's just a mashu. So if it's in something that's a different min, a different type of food, then just a mashu doesn't have the ability to make isur. You have to have much more than that. You have to have noisin tam. It has to be enough to actually give off flavor, which doesn't exist in this case. We're assuming that the actual chametz embedded in the wall of the kli is not significant, because even if you cook some chametz within it, just the chametz portion is just a small amount of the entire dish. So we're assuming just a little bit there. So why do you have to go break these pots? Va'amai lishinu achar Pesach. Hold on to them till after Pesach. V'la'avid behu shalei b'minan. And cook within these kelim, these klei chametz, something which is a different variety, a different type, a different flavor than the chametz embedded within the wall of the kli. In which case the chametz, even if it gets flushed into the food, won't have enough to make it asur. So why do you have to break them? Even according to Rav, there's an eitzah. Just leave them until after Pesach. And as the Magen Avraham says, although there's some chametz residue embedded within the walls, there's no bal yiro or bal yimatz on that, because it's not something tangible, it's not mamoshes, it's not be'en. Therefore there's no bal yiro for just holding on to flavor of chametz. So just hold on to the pots and use it after Pesach by cooking a different type of food, a different flavor, a different variety, other than the chametz which is embedded in the wall of the kli. So it's min b'she'eni minai, in which case it won't make it asur if it's just a mashul chametz. Says we can't do that. Why? Gzeira dilma asu lemebad behu b'minai. There's a concern that if we allow him to use it for shaloi b'minai, this can lead him to use the pot for minai, something of the same variety, the same type as the chametz itself, in which case it would make it asur. Therefore we're concerned, and you have to go and break those pots. And Tosfos points out, although earlier, when it came to the actual chametz itself, the taroivis chametz, we don't seem to have this concern. Rav himself said that if the chametz after Pesach got mixed into a davar shel heter, it doesn't make it aser if it's just a mashu. Why don't we say, well, if we're going to allow by shalei b'minoi, perhaps we're going to do the same by minoi, where it's a mashu. Why does Rav say that if the chametz gets mixed in shalei b'minoi, it's mutter if it's just a little bit? Why are we concerned that this might happen with minoi? In which case it will be aser. So apparently we don't have this gzera when it comes to the actual food itself. Rather, says Tosfos, this applies specifically to a pot. When it comes to food, it's not shchiach. It's not common. It's not likely that chametz will mix it with other food. When it comes to the pot, it's something that's going to be used on a regular basis. He's going to take this pot, which has the chametz, and use it for this and use it for that. Perhaps we allow it to be used for shalei b'minoi, which is mutter. Next time he's going to use it for minoi, in which case it will be aser. Therefore, we apply this gzera, and Rav says, kederus v'pesach yishaberu, they should be broken, because there's really no use for them. U'shmuel amar lo yishabru, there's no reason to break them. Aval mashu lachar pesach, lachar zmanai, just leave them over till after the zman, after pesach. Va'avid behu, and you can use them for anything. Ben b'minoi, ben shalei b'minoi, whether you're cooking the same type of food as the chametz embedded within the walls of the kli, or shalei b'minoi. Why? Why does Shmuel allow? Because Shmuel is l'shitasei. We learned this yesterday. He holds that chametz lachar pesach is only aser if it is intact. He's following Reb Shimon that the chametz lachar pesach is only d'Rabbanan, and it's only if it's be'en, but if it's mixed into something else, certainly in this case it's just a flavor, residue embedded within the walls of a kli. There's no concern. If it gets mixed into a heter, it will be mutter. Therefore, according to Shmuel, no need to break the kelim, hold on to them, and use them after Pesach for anything you wish. Let's take a look at Rashi inside. Smack in the middle of the Amud here, Amar Rav. You have it? Amar Rav. Kedeiros ba'Pesach yishaberu. Explains Rashi. Why is Rav instruct them to break the kelim? Rav tamei, because Rav is in line with his shita. The Amar chametz af lachazmanai. Asr b'hanok Rabbi Yehuda. Even after Pesach, it's asr b'hanok like Rabbi Yehuda. It's minat Torah. V'islei b'mashu, and even just a drop of chametz that gets mixed into a heter would be asr. That's number one. And number two, because Sava Rav holds noisein tam lifgam asr. And here's the chiddush: this flavor embedded, this taste embedded in the doifnei hakli, in the wall of the kli, is something which already expired. It's been here for a while. We're speaking after Pesach. It's already 7 full days that have passed since the kli absorbed this fresh flavor. It's now stale. It's now spoiled. And when it's going to impart flavor, it's going to enter the food which is being cooked in this pot. It's a nice and tam lifgam. It works to the detriment of the food within. It's going to downgrade it, spoil it somewhat. It's a stale flavor. And Rav will hold, no, even this type of flavor can make it awesome. That's a chiddush. Says Rashi, in fact, the halacha doesn't follow Rav Shita, v'les hilchas l'kavasem trei tami, on 2 accounts. Why? Number one, chada de'uki Rav hilchasa. Rav already established earlier, this was yesterday, that the halacha is taroives lachazmani mutter Reb Shimon. Any chametz after Pesach that got mixed into heter is mutter, because if it's not intact, there's no isser. Since it's only the Rabbanan, the actual chametz on which a person was over bal yirov bal yimatzah, there's a gzer, but once it's mixed in, it's batal b'roiv, we don't reckon with it. It says Rashi, v'hai pochis mitaroivesu. Here we're speaking about less, even less than a mixture, because there's nothing really tangible mixing into the heter. It's just some type of residue, some type of flavor, which is being flushed out of the walls of the kli into the food. So it's regarded even with less prominence than a real mixture. So certainly in this case, says Rav, according to Reb Shimon, will be mutter, and that's the halach. Number one. Number two, we're speaking about a spoiled taste, a stale taste. V'oid the kaimalan, we know for a fact, noisin tam lefgam mutter. V'zemish overall of Yimei Pesach. Once Pesach passes, hufag tam b'defnei kli. The tam has been spoiled, has already expired in the walls of the kli. So this is a tam which is lifgam and would be mutter in any case. So Rashi explains that the halacha doesn't follow Rav's chumrah on two accounts. Number one, since it's tareivus. Number two, it's a spoiled taste. In any case, Rav says you have to break the kelim, and the Gemara says why? But okay, even according to Rav, that a mashu is isa the tareivus, and isa skam is aser. But that only applies if it's minay, right? If a drop of chametz falls into something which is the same type of food, then it's oiser. But if it's shloi b'minay, then just a mashu is not sufficient. So why can't he use this kelim of li'avet bu shloi b'minay? Just use it for shloi b'minay. The ma'id Rav le'el the chametz shloi b'zmanay shloi b'minay b'mashu mutar. Rav agrees that chametz after Pesach, if it's shloi b'minay, it needs to have enough to impart proper flavor to be nice and tav. Just a mashu is nothing. Vay mashu chashav. This is just a mashu. The one response is exer. Shmuel disagrees. He says leave the kelim for after Pesach and use it in any manner which you see fit, because chametz achar Pesach is not so stringent. Any type of tareivus would be mutter. Now, Tei says a kasha. We know that lechatchila ein mevatn isser lechatchila. One can't take isser and be mevatl, nullify it initially. Some say it's isser d'rabbanan, some say it's even isser d'oraisa. So the Gemara suggests that you go and you take the kelim which have chametz and use it after Pesach and be mevatl the isser. Ein mevatl, isser lechatchila. Says Tosfos, yeah, that's lechatchila. Here it's b'di'evet, because if you don't allow this type of use, then this kli is gone. You have to break it. It's useless. You're going to be mafsid the kli. So this is a scenario of b'di'evet. It's after the fact. Therefore, we allow it to be used in this manner to salvage the use of the kli. Okay, continues the Gemara. So Shmuel disagreed. He said you can hold on to the kelim and use them after Pesach. V'azda Shmuel tamei. Apparently Shmuel is in line with his shita. The Amar Shmuel lahanu the mazbeni kandi. Shmuel instructed these kandi merchants, those who would sell the pots. He says, look, don't hike your prices after Pesach due to the high demand. Ashvuzvini akandichi. Keep your prices reasonable on your pots, akandichi. V'ilai, because if you're going to be engaged in price gouging, v'imlai darishna lachu kirab Shimon. I will announce to you, I will make a public announcement in accordance with Shittas Reb Shimon, meaning Reb Shimon says tareivus after Pesach is mutter. So nobody has to go buy new pots. I can just use their old pots. So be careful. Keep your prices down. Says the Gemara, v'lidishlu. So why didn't he go about and do that? Why was he waiting? He was just using it as a warning, as a card. Why didn't he actually go ahead and just announce it publicly? Look, Rabbi said there's no need to break your pots. A tareivus after Pesach is mutter. Does Shmuel Rabbi Shimon's really? Because Shmuel himself certainly holds like Rabbi Shimon. Asri de Rav Hava, it was Rav's area, Rav's community, and it wasn't respectful for Shmuel to negate Rav. So he hesitated to go ahead and promote this shita. However, he used it as a warning, as a leverage against the merchants. He said, look, if you can go and hike your prices unreasonably, I'm going to go and announce it for the sake of public benefit. Let them know that they don't have to go ahead and buy his pots. So he hesitated, but he would definitely use this as a last resort. There was this oven in which they smeared tichya, this fat. So now the oven is fleshig, has tangible fat. Asra Rav Bar Eloi lemichle l'rifta. Rav Bar Eloi didn't allow them to eat the bread which was baked in this fleshig oven, even with salt, forever. Meaning, even after they reheated this oven, he maintained that the fat is still embedded somewhat in the walls of this oven, and therefore he wouldn't allow them to take bread baked in this oven and eat it in any manner, even with salt. Needless to say, you can't eat it with milk, because the bread is absorbed with the fat, which is fleshig. But even just to use it with salt, he wouldn't allow. Why? Dilma asri lemichle b'kutcha. Perhaps a person might come to eat this loaf of bread, which has fat absorbed in it, with kutach. Kutach is this milchig dip that had milk in it. So this oven couldn't be used for any purpose, for any type of bread, which perhaps might lead a person to eat basar b'chalav. And the chiddush is even after the oven was reheated, that wasn't enough, according to Rabbi Eloi, to flush out the fat within. Meisvei of a kashmar bryce. Ein loshen as isa b'chalav. This is a similar concept. A person cannot knead a dough with milk to go ahead and make a milchik bread. V'im losh, if he did that, kol hapas kula asura. This entire bread is asur. You can't eat it in any manner. Why? We're concerned that it might lead to avera. You might go ahead and take this bread and use it with meat. Therefore, one can't go ahead and form and bake a milchik bread. Kayetzevai, a similar concept. Ein tashin as tanur ba'alya. One can't go ahead and smear his tanur, his oven, with the alya, the tail of the animal, the fat. Vim tash, if he did so, kol hapas kula asura. Any bread baked in this oven is asur, because there's a concern once again that this bread, which has fat in it, and is fleshik, might be used with milchik. Ad shiyasik as tanur, until he heats up that oven. By doing so, he burns out, he flushes out the fat within, and now the oven is back to normal. So this bryce indicates that reheating that tanur cleanses the tanur. Tanur miyashari. Apparently, once the tanur was heated, the tanur is al mutter. And there's a kasha to Rabbi Bar Eloi who didn't allow use of this tanur even after it was heated. To Yufta, there's a refutation to Rabbi Bar Eloi. To Yufta. Rabbi Bar Eloi, now after this shita has been refuted, which indicates that heating something is sufficient even to a tanur, which the Gemara assumes is referring to the typical oven, a klei cheres, earthenware kli. So you see that even hesek works for klei cheres, right? Even earthenware kli, which is something made of highly absorbent material, as we're going to see in the upcoming Gemara. But hesek, heating up, using fire to heat that up, that burns out the blia and extracts anything in it, whether the fleshik, whether the milchik. So if that's the case, Ravina has a kasha. He says to Rav Ashi, once we've refuted Rav, and we've determined that even a tana, which is a klicheres, or presume it's a klicheres, can be cleansed using hesek, heating, fire. If that's the case, Amai Kama Rav. Why Rav say that those pots, those klicheres, need to be broken up? They can no longer be used after Pesach. We have a simple solution. Just heat them up and flush out, extract the absorbed flavor, the chametz. Rav Ashi responded, there's a big difference. Hosam tano teches. The brisa, which allows heating to be employed in order to flush out the absorbed residue. Speaking about a tano teches, a metallic oven, something made of metal material, which has the ability to flush out the absorbed residue. However, Rav was speaking about cheres kelim, which are highly absorbent. And even hesek, even heating them up, is not sufficient to expel the blia within. Everybody say, another pshat, hava b'shal cheres. The Bryce as well was speaking about cheres. Why does the Bryce allow you to heat up the tanur to extract the residue? The oven is generally heated from within. You put the firewood within, you light the fire, so the heat, the level of heat rises to a very high level, to the desired level, which is enough to have a proper effect on the oven material, and burns it out, cleanses it out. However, a pot is generally heated from where? From the outside, from underneath. In which case the heat gets dispersed, and we don't have that same effect. It's not that same intense, concentrated heat, which will actually affect the klicheres properly and expel and flush out the chametz within. So according to this text in the Gemara, even by klicheres, sometimes you can go and expel the tam, the blia, provided you have a proper heat that's going to be applied. For instance, the hesek of a tanner. And as Tosfos points out, another example would be putting the klicheres back in the kivsha. back in the kiln, in the furnace, in which case you're rebaking that kli, remaking it, totally burning it out, drying it up, in which case, of course, even by klicheres it would work. Again, so the Gemara tells us that even by klicheres hesek could work, but provided the hesek, the heating, is taking place within the kli, for example, like in the oven, as opposed to the pots that Rav was speaking about, where the hesek is actually occurring outside of the kli. Perhaps you'll say, Chanami, likewise by the pots of Rav. Okay, so you have to do the heating from within, do that. Make the hasaka inside the kli, fill it up with firewood and light a fire inside the pot and expel the chametz in that manner. Why can't we do that? Why does Rav tell us to break the kli? Chayas alei mishum de paka. There's a concern that he's going to be concerned about his kli, and instead of doing the fire within, he's going to be concerned perhaps it's going to explode the kli, going to bust the kli. Mishum de paka, the kli will explode, and instead of doing it inside, he's going to do it on the outside, in which case it's ineffective. Therefore, Rav says there's nothing to do with the pots. Although technically, if you would make a hesek mifnim, it's okay, but there's a gzera that he might not follow instructions. He might avoid heating it up from within. Instead, he'll do it on the outside. He'll think, what's the difference, inside or out? And certainly on the outside, it wouldn't work. Therefore, Rav says there's no eitzah but to break those kelim. Says the Gemara, but there is one exception, hilkach. Due to this discussion, we conclude like this: Hai buchya, this kli, which was made from these some type of brick, which was very durable. So although it was a kli cheres, has seikai b'chutzu v'aser. So when the hesek, typical hesek, was done outside, right? It was used to barbecue, so they would place the fire underneath it, and the food within. So the hesek was in the exterior, and therefore it's not enough to go ahead and expel. You can't use this method of outside of exterior heating to go ahead and expel the flavor. However, if he chooses to fill it up with coals, in which case the hesek is actually taking place within the kli, then certainly there's sufficient concentration of heat there. There's intense heat, which will flush out the tam. I'm not concerned that he's going to try to sidestep this procedure. He's going to avoid placing the gecholim b'fnim. As the Mepharshim explained, apparently this buchya is made of very durable material, in which case he won't hesitate to actually light the fire within. So when it comes to this type of kli, there's an easy solution. Even when you have chametz tika buchya, just fill it up with coals and do the hagala, expel the flavor in that manner. Amalei Ravina Laravashi, Hani Sakini de Pischa, Heichi Avdinalu. How are we meant to use the knives, the chametz knives on Pesach? How do we go ahead and expel the flavor, flush out the chametz embedded within? What's the procedure? Omar Leis Ravashi responded, Lididi Chadata Kavdinan. They make new ones for me. So I have new knives made, fashioned for Pesach. I use brand new ones. Omar Leis Ravina told him, look, Teinach Mar de Efshale. Okay, that takes care of you because you're a wealthy fellow. You can afford making new knives every Pesach. That's a good method for you. What about a person who can't? Doesn't have that option available. How does he kasher his knives? Omar Lei. So Rav Ashi responded, no, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean actually brand new knives. Anok ein chadato kamin. I meant they're like new, they're renewed. What does that mean? Katayu bitina. We do hagala. We do libun. We take the katayu, their handles, which are wooden handles. Bitina, we cover them with clay to protect them from the fire. And then we take the blade, uparzilayu benura, we take their blades, and we burn it, we do libun, embed it in fire. That burns out the chametz within. So that's the first step of the process. V'hadar ma'ilana l'katayu v'roischen. And then we remove the clay from the handles, and we put the ma'ilana l'katayu, we put their handles v'roischen in boiling hot water, and the kli risha, and sitting on the fire, because the blade perhaps came into contact with chametz on fire, and we generally apply the formula I was going to see in a minute, called kiboiloi kach poltoi, which means that the heat required to expel, to extract flavor, whether it's isser, whether it's chametz from a utensil, It needs to correspond to the same level of heat that was present during the absorption process. So it's tit for tat. Kiboile, the same heat that was present during the blia, kachpote, that's the same heat needed to expel the flavor. So for instance, something which was used on fire, to barbecue something on fire, so that chametz was absorbed in the presence of actual fire. So fire is needed to expel that flavor. That's called libun in the Pesachim. So you need libun. Whereas something which only absorbed on a kli rishon was put into a pot sitting on a fire, a boiling pot of hot chametz sitting on the eish, that's only called a kli rishon. So in order to expel that sort of flavor, you have to go find a kli rishon that has water which is mutter, and that water will now expel this flavor because it's the same level of heat that was present during the absorption process. Now Rav Ashi required that his sakinim undergo a double phase process. Number one, the blade needed to be cleansed through actual fire, and the handles merely through reischin, hot water, boiling hot water in a kli rishon. Because apparently his handles, which were wood, did not actually absorb chametz on a fire; they would get burnt. It was only the blades that had that concern, so the blades need to be cleansed through fire, but the handles merely through reischin and boiling hot water. So the parzelayu benura and the katayu were put into reischin. However, the Gemara concludes you don't need to do that. Whether the handle or the blade can simply be cleansed through reischin, hot water in a kli rishon, the initial kli of hot water sitting on the flame. As some explain, it has to be perhaps on the flame itself, perhaps off the flame, but the point is it has to be the first kli, not having mixed and poured over into a different kli. So that first kli rishon has the ability to extract the flavor which was embedded through a kli rishon. Kiboile kach polte. Now, why does Rav Ashi require fire to be used for the blades? So Taisa says perhaps he was being machman himself, although al pi halacha it wasn't needed. As the Gemara concluded, all you need is a kli rishon. He required an additional measure, which was the fire. Continues the Gemara. Omar Afuna Breder Vishu. Eitz parer, a mixing spoon, which would mix chametz on the actual, in the pot on the fire in a kli rishon. So how do you cleanse that? Heidu haga'ala mag'iloi b'reischin. So you magil, you expel the embedded chametz flavor in the spoon using reischin, boiling hot water of a kli rishon from a kli rishon. Because he holds kiboiloi, the same measure of heat present during the belia of the iser kach pota. That's meant to be applied in order to expel the heat. It's tit for tat. So since this eitz par was used in hot water and a kli rishon for chametz, that's how it absorbed its flavor. You need to use the same measure to expel the flavor. Boi minei me'amemer, was the Bachas Gers mi meremer. So they asked meremer the following question. We discussed earlier that kli matchos or kli eitz can undergo the hag'ala process, putting it into kli rishon in order to expel the flavor. However, when it comes to kli cheres, which is highly absorbent, as we're going to see, Rashi is going to bring the pasuk that you must break them. You can't just spill hot water or immerse them in hot water. You need to break them, or as Tosfos says, you have to go and renew it, rebake it, but anything less than that doesn't do. Now, what about a kli cheres, which isn't completely cheres? It's glazed with some sort of metallic surface, let's say lead. So the actual surface which is being used, which actually comes into contact with the chametz, is metal. But beneath it you have cheres substance. So how do we treat it? Is it a kli cheres, in which case hag'ala, the standard hag'ala process would work? Or do we treat it like a kli cheres? So they asked Marei Mar this question. Hani mani de kunya. These glazed kli cheres, which are plated with lead, ma'u lishtamushi bu pescha. Can one use them on Pesach? Can one use these things with having undergone the process of hag'ala? Or do we say, no, since inside there's cheres, which is highly absorbent, you can't cleanse them properly for Pesach? Now, yuroika loitiboilach. Green cheres substance, certainly is no question. Rashi says it has the alum, which is sharp and highly absorbent. Certainly there's no question, the Vade Asiri, certainly they're asa because they're sharp and they suck the flavor coming onto the surface of the kli, all the way inside into the cheres. There's no question that they absorb the chametz and they're unusable for Pesach. Kiti boilach, the question will be, uchmi v'chivri, black or white material. What is the halacha there? Are they absorbent enough to the extent that despite the fact that it's glazed with metal, the flavor goes all the way into the cheres, or do we say the flavor remains on the upper surface, and let's treat them like a klimatchis, in which case Hagala, the standard Hagala procedure works. Now, veichad isbu kartufni, when they have these cracks in the surface, like terbelach, certainly there's no question about the asir, they're asa because, once again, the chametz residue seeps into the cracks, all the way into klicheres, which you can't clean. Kiti boilach the question will be when they're smooth and uncracked. What is the halach? So the question once again is, do we treat them like a clay matris, like a metallic clay, in which case you can do hagala, immerse them in hot water, or do we have to reckon with the fact that beneath the surface, below that lead plating, there's cheres, which perhaps absorbed the chametz as well, and you can't go clean it for Pesach. Omarlei, so Marema responded, look, chazinalu de medaisi. I noticed that they expel liquid. Meaning, when they're used, you can see clearly that from the outer side of the kli, from the exterior of the kli, there's some moisture emanating. Alma bali vasiri. Apparently, that's the biggest proof that the entire kli is boileya, absorbed from the material within. Otherwise, why is there moisture exuding from the outer surface of the kli? Apparently, the blia, the residue goes through and through, permeates the entire kli, including the cheres portion. If that's the case, they're asa. Why? And the bachas gurs, my timer, why? What's wrong with the kli cheres? Va'atoira, my timer, ha'atoira hi'ida al kli cheres. The Torah testified that a kli cheres is unique. It can be separated from its doifiyoi. Doifiyoi is its undesirable residue that's embedded within. Doifiyoi means it's kilkul, it's undesirable. Meaning that anything absorbed in the kli cheres remains there. It's highly absorbent and it's virtually impossible to separate the cheres from the taste, flavor, residue, etc. that's been embedded within. So these kli cheres have chametz within, and there's no way to extract, to flush out that chametz. Perhaps let's take a look at Rashi inside. So let's begin 16 lines from the top. Rashi begins with eitz parah. You have it, eitz parah. Shemagisim be'akedera. This is the mixing spoon. In order to kasher that, you have to go and immerse it in hot water. Why? Kiboile kach poter. Kiboile mitech klirishin, just as it absorbs through a klirishin. Kach poter, klirishin, likewise, it's going to expel using a klirishin. And the question asked to Merema was kunya, plumer balaz, venshal cheres, v'tuach be'ever. Speaking about kli cheres, which are plated with lead. So how do we view it? Is it a kli cheres or is it kli matris? Now, Yuroiki, the green ones, Asuyin Mekaka Shechayf Menetzrif Alam Balaz, the kli cheres that were made using the green material and then plated with the metal. Vu Az, it's sharp, and it's very absorbent. There's no question. There's no question. The Vade Asir, certainly they're asa. The Mitzarfi Boli, they absorb Mitzarfi Tzrif, it's the Tzrif, the alum. It has this material which is very thirsty and sucking material, and certainly the chametz goes all the way into the kli. Likewise, if there are cracks, kartufni b'koyim, there's no question. The question if they're smooth, and he responded, apparently they absorb because I've seen the medaisi poten amashkim medaifin achitzim b'las tershtish. I see that they impart liquid, moisture. They sweat on the outside of the kli. Apparently the chametz flavor, that residue, permeates the entire body of the kli. The kiva de medaisi vade bali, since they're sweating on the outside, certainly they're boileya. Now, once that happens, of course, they're rasa bohelo bali shuvin impotent. Once the kli cheres is boileya, they can no longer expel and flush out the flavor within them. How do I know? Sha'atoira he'ido aklicheres. The Torah itself testified regarding aklicheres. Shekivan shebola, that once it absorbed, it no longer can be separated from its doifi, from its residue. What's the raya? Says Rashi from the Psukim. Sharei b'kli eitzim matches, because when it comes to wooden kalim, metal kalim, the pasuk says, "Kosalach yishatef teriver eish amerik v'shutav," all different types of instructions how to do hagala, rinse them, wash them, put them in hot water. Avo b'klicheres yishaber. When it comes to klicheres, what does the Torah say? You have to break it. There's no way out. It's deeply absorbed. Therefore, Merema says when it comes to these klicheres, these are chametzik kalim, there's no way to be masakin them for Pesach. Once again, Taisus points out, of course, if you put it back into the oven, you rebake it and remake it. In that case, certainly it's like a new kli, it's panim chadashes, and of course we're not discussing that. We're speaking about standard procedures of hagala, immersing in hot water, etc. That won't be effective when it comes to klicheres. Continues the Gemara. If that's the case, that Merema says that these glazed kalim are regarded like klicheres, and there's no way to cleanse them of the blia. So why is it different than le'inyan yain nesach? When it comes to yain nesach, which is also something which is aser, the dorish maremar, the same maremar, said like this: Mani de kunya, these glazed earthenware kalim, bein uchma, whether black, bein chivri, whether they're white, or bein yiraiki, even if they're green. So they used green or white or black cheres material and then was glazed. Shari, they're all mutter, because we treat them like a kli machmas, it's not like a cheres. So why is it that by chametz he was machmas? Perhaps you'll differentiate between yain nesach, which is merely asur midrabanan, chametz dorais, as opposed to chametz, which is minator and you have to be machmer. So that will be the difference. No, so we can't say that. Whatever the chachamim established a takana, it resembled the Raisa guidelines. They wouldn't establish more lenient guidelines when it comes to the Rabbanon. Chacham said that yain nesach is asur, and Kli absorbed yain nesach is considered to have absorbed something of Issa. So just as when it comes to chametz, we say, well, these glazed kalim are treated like klicheres. When it comes to yain nesach, there should be no difference. There's no reason to be makel by the Rabbanon more than the Raisa. Omar lei. So he responded, I suppose it was Meremar, he says like this: Zeh tashmishoy aydei cham. There's a big difference. The difference is how the kli was used. When it comes to chametz, the kli was used aydei chamen. It was used with hot. Hot gets absorbed in the kli. And therefore this kli cheretz, once it's absorbed, it can't let go of the blia. However, by yain nesach is cold wine. It's not hot material. V'zeh tashmisha aydei tzoyin, as opposed to yain nesach, where the use was soinen. It was a cold use, in which case it's not beleya the issa and there's no concern. Continues the Gemara on the same topic of tashmisha b'tzoyin. Amar Rava barab, Amar Rav Chia barash mashmu kol hakelim shenishtamshu behen chametz b'tzoyin. In fact, any kli which was used for chametz but it was tzoyin, cold use, mishtamash ben matzah. You can use the same kli for matzah because only heat has the ability to absorb. But when it comes to something only used with cold, there's no concern. Just make sure there's no chametz there, rinse it off, and you're okay. Except for the following thing: chutz min beis asar. Except for the container of the asar. Why? Even though it's been only used for cold, hoyel shechimutze kasha, since it has a very strong, potent chimutz, it's highly concentrated chametz. That asar is the sourdough. So the container of that asar absorbs the chametz, even though it was merely used in a cold temperature context. Omar Avashi, I have another example. Beis charoises, the container holding the sharp charoises, which was chametz. Beis or is equated to the beis or shechmutzei kasha because there too it has the strength, the power, the concentration, the potency of the beis or shechmutzei kasha, as we just explained. And therefore, the beis charoises as well needs to be cleansed before Pesach. We have to treat it as though the chametz was used b'chametz. Amar Rava, Hani Agda de Mechoyz. There's another example of these kneading bowls in the town of Mechoyz. That was Rava's town. There as well, since it is common for them to use it over and over for the kneading of the chametz. In fact, they leave the chametz in these bowls for a while. So due to the fact that the chametz is very prevalent there, it's an ever-present thing. It is equated to the base whose chimutz is potent, strong, and concentrated. And even though, once again, we're speaking about cold use, there is absorption and blia taking place. There's no pshita, of course. Why would I differentiate between the agni, the mechoiza, and the beis or? In both cases, we have chametz sitting in them. Perhaps I would think, kivan de revicha, since these bowls are wide and open, shalat ba'avira, they're just aired out due to the wind, the air coming in. That prevents it from being boilea. It waters down the concentration of the chametz. Kamash Malon, the chiddush is no. Even in this case, since it's commonly used on a regular basis for chametz, and they leave it there, the chametz is absorbed within the walls of this kli, and we treat it as though it was boilea through chametz, through hot water. Okay, time for a brief chazara of today's daf. We began with Rav telling us that those pots need to be broken, and the reason is because there's chametz within them, and there's no use for them after Pesach. Rav holds that chametz after Pesach is also min haTorah, and even a yimashu mixed into the taroivis will make it asur. Although you can use it shalei b'minai, in which case a mashu is not sufficient to make it asur, there's a gzera, it might be used for a minai. Now, why can't he go ahead and cleanse the chametz, clean out the blia from the kli? The Gemara tells us that either because we're speaking about the kedera shel cheres, and although when it comes to even a cheres, you can go ahead and cleanse it by filling it up with coals, but we're concerned that a kedera, he's going to try to avoid that. He's going to be afraid about busting his kli. Instead, he'll just resort to heating it up from the outside, which is not sufficient. So practically speaking, we're concerned that this chametz will remain within. Therefore, Rav says, break those kelim. Shmuel disagrees. He says, you can use those kelim after Pesach. Why? Because it's not be'en. You're not using the actual chametz, the mamash of chametz. It's being mixed into heter. Taroives after Pesach is mutter and according to Reb Shimon. We learned about the sugya of kiboilei kach polte, which is that in order to extract the isser or the chametz flavor embedded within the walls of a kli, you need to employ the same level of heat that was present during the absorption process. Let's go down the line. So we're speaking about clay matches, clay eights, metal kalim, wooden kalim. Then standard hagala procedure works. So for instance, if a kli was only used for tzoinin, it's cold, then really no hagala is required, except in cases where there is a high concentration of chametz, like the beis or the beis charoises. But typically, there's no concern if a kli was only used for tzoinin. If a kli was used with hot water, they need to employ the same level of heat, the same type of heat. Like if we're using a kli rishon, for instance, that mixing spoon, then you have to immerse it in a kli rishon to expel the isser flavor. Or if a kli was used, the isser, using actual fire, in that case, you have to counter fire with fire, and do libun on the kli to be masha the kli. When it comes to kli cheres, and even those mani de kunya, which are those glazed kli cheres, then we have a concern because Torah is made that a kli cheres doesn't really let go too easily of the absorbed flavor. So what do we do with the kli cheres? The Gemara tells us if you do a hesek mibifnim, an interior heating, like in an oven where the fire is within, or if you have that buchya kli, that durable kli, and you fill it with coals, it's okay. It's okay because you're going and you're completely expelling the flavor. But when it comes to kederes, your typical pot, which is meant to be heated on the outside, there's a concern that perhaps he'll avoid filling it with fire. Instead, he'll just resort to an exterior heating process, which is insufficient. And therefore, Rav told us those kederes of kli cheres cannot be used, must be broken. And as points out, there's actually another method, even by kli cheres, which is the kivshon. Put it back in the furnace, reheat it, rebake it, dry up the entire residue embedded within. That's called panim chadashes. As though you have a brand new kli. This is not the old kli. This is reheated, rebaked, remaked. And therefore, even by kli cheres, it is mutter to be used going forward.